All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like I was saying, as part of the CRM, we um, are the CRM we use is Salesforce, right? And Salesforce is in public network. It's a cloud SaaS, right? And the products we have and the information, the other products we have that Dell has built in the years, right? They are within Dell network on-prem. So
Okay.
the developer role we are looking for is, is the one who's supposed to establish these connectivities between the products, between Salesforce to these internal products. It could be REST APIs, it could be asynchronous APIs, feeds. This involves Spring Boot with Java
Okay.
primarily,
Mhm.
and then the other tools, Kafka, Apache Kafka, RabbitMQ, MongoDB, um, and the knowledge of Salesforce is optional, but it's the Spring Boot and the other tools I mentioned are mandatory. So this is the background
Okay.
um, for this role,
Mhm.
and yeah, and we are looking for someone with the hands-on. Okay, so sprint is going to look like more than one or more stories where you would have to contribute hands-on 100% on all the stories. They
Okay.
could be ad hoc items, right? Ad hoc
Mhm.
items could also be around the same activity, right? You would be maybe some issue might pop up, analyze the issue, make a code fix, and ship it to prod. So this is the expectation on this role. So given that expectation, right? How comfortable are you on this role?
Yeah, I'm good in that. Mostly I'm working with the same tech stack which you have told already.
Hmm. And then the hands-on part.
Yeah, that also I have.
All right. Uh-huh. So um, so give us, give me little background about yourself and your previous work
Sure.
and how their responsibilities were.
Sure. Thank you for asking. My name is Amarjit. I'm having 7+ years of experience based on the Java technology. So the technology stack which I have, like Java with a Spring Boot, microservices, AWS cloud services, Kafka, and so these all are backend related for things. And coming for this, some of the front end also I have like uh, Angular and Angular 9 experience I have. Apart from this, for the cloud, I have used most of the AWS cloud services like SNS, SMS, Elastic Beans, Rabbit, Elastic Beans, and then CloudWatch and all. Coming for this DevOps, I have also good knowledge about the DevOps tools which is used for the development like Apache Maven, Jenkins, Jira, GitHub, ELK, Splunk, and all. And some of the also I have a database knowledge like uh, based on this relational and non-relationals like relational RDBMS I have Oracle, and NoSQL is some collection based knowledge I have. So these all are the technology stack which I have. Domain, mostly I worked on different domain like telecom, e-commerce, banking, and all. So my role and responsibility for this, like the current project which I work mostly based on this insurance portal, there we have to manage this application. So that was based on this Spring Boot microservices. So we need to manage the applications where we have to develop the multiple REST template API based on the microservices and communicate from one service to another services. While we need to communicate, for that we have a REST template or either Kafka. So Kafka will have a synchronous communication, REST will have a synchronous communications. So that type of work we worked. Apart from this, while we are working, so there will be some deployment will happen. So once we have developed the applications in the different local environment or UAT SIT, then that will go for the production. Before going for productions, we also have a schedule call. There we need to available and see the required changes. Whatever the required changes I have done, is this correct? What are the configurations, cloud config details, and all is correct or not? So before that deployment, we need to check all the logs, all the security, all the validations is proper or not. So that after deployment or post deployment, we need to verify this also. So that type of work also I am involving in this daily basis call. Yeah, that's it.
Sounds good. And your last project, so what were your in your last project? What were you delivering? What were you shipping?
Yeah, so last project
Maybe
where
last 1 month or last 2 months.
yeah, so last project where we delivered like mostly microservices based applications. So like cart checkouts and then stores. This type of microservice we have developed where we need to provide the implementation based on the client requirement because we followed agile. Based on the agile, whatever the sprint task will be defined, we have a Jira work that need to be implement. So mostly we develop this type of things.
Sounds good. Okay, so little bit of system design, right? So how would you enable, or what would you make sure you do when you're um, consuming a field from a synchronous topic, like a topic, right? A,
Okay.
or a queue.
It
Let's
depends on
take
the
example of
requirement.
Kafka itself, like you said, Kafka.
Yeah, it depends on requirement. Suppose if I want synchronized data, then mostly we will communicate from one service to another service by using REST template or maybe some RESTful web services related things. Either we have a JSON or XML form and all. But if we have a like a synchronous communication, then we have a producer consumers clusters will be there. So through that we can create a Kafka or any as other messaging queue which will be asynchronous communications will provide, right?
Right, I mean to say, let's say you're using Kafka and there are few things and a few behaviors Kafka exhibits, right? So it has out of ordering message delivery. It has a bunch of partitions. It has retention stuff like that, right? So what would you do to make sure your feed is consuming every single message and processing every single one of them and keeping up with the load? Let's say you have maybe uh, 10 lakh messages per hour coming on Kafka topic. How would you make sure you're consuming all of them, keeping up with the load, not having any lag? What would you do? How would you design your microservice? How many instances would you run? Everything, technical aspect of it.
Correct. Okay, okay. Yeah. So mostly first of all we have to create a design of microservice based applications where we'll have a loose couple applications module by module, and then that will be deployed in this maybe the cloud services like AWS and any other cloud services where we can auto CI/CD deployment will be there. So through that whatever the changes and all will happen automatically, Jenkins will take it, the build, and that will be deployed. Either we'll have a Docker or maybe some Kubernetes container management. So while we deployed, the application has developed and that is deployed in the AWS services. And how we can manage to scale up and all. So for that we'll have our applications. So that will while we deployed application on the productions, then that applications will have a load balancers like that will be created three instance or maybe two applications, so that if any A instance is not working properly, so that will be auto scale up with the B instance. So we have a Spring Cloud component. So either we have a load balancers, Eureka service registry, or circuit breakers and all, so that we can implement these features while our services is down. Then load balance Eureka service registry will send this to the circuit breaker, and circuit breaker will send the predefined message. Suppose if we have our services A is down, then that will be replicate from the B. So for that we'll have a load balancer, because depends on the requirement. Suppose if huge amount of request is coming from the client, that will be balanced from the different sub services like sub network services and all. So that type of
Will
things
increasing your instances solve the problem though? Would you
increasing.
say that how many partitions do you think the Kafka should have, and how many partitions do you think your instance should have?
Yeah, Kafka mostly will have a three replications will be created. If you want, you can modify the changes with the. So we have a Kafka configuration class. So that YAML property, we have to mention this. What are the replications? What will be the topic name? And what are the cluster? Where
Right.
the
Let's say yes, like you said, it has three. How many
yes.
instances are you going to run for consumption?
Can you come again?
How many instances you said you're going to run of your Spring Boot applications that's consuming?
Only at a time only one instance will be run. Like suppose that
Mm-hmm.
instance is not working or maybe something happened, then automatically that will be a scale up with the second instance or copy of instance.
Okay. Let's say I want to increase concurrency. Concurrency basically, number of threads that I want to
Mhm.
use to process or consume messages. What can I do? There are three partitions, right? So three partitions is well and good.
Correct.
How many for three partitions? How many threads are going to be active for consumption? And if I want to increase, what should we do?
Okay. So if you want to add one more that or concurrency.
Just so I can process more, right? Because
Yeah.
like I said, 10 lakh messages per hour, and each message is taking maybe 1 or 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So that just means that I need 10 lakh seconds to per hour to process, which I don't have, right? I just have limited number of seconds in an hour. So how would I increase concurrency?
Concurrency we can increase in this property file because application.property will be there. There we can add the concurrency details or
Mm-hmm. True.
and
Would Kafka accept that?
Kafka and in this Kafka configuration or Kafka template. Yeah, that will be accepted by the Kafka also while we because we are enabling auto configurations in this Kafka template. So whatever the configurations we modified there in this property file, that will be taken care.
Okay, sounds good. And how about a queue instead of topic? Let's
Mhm.
say you're consuming from a queue. How would that be how would that be different? In what ways?
Yeah, topic and all will be defined based on the microservices. So suppose we have a microservices is order based, so that topic we have to define as a order. So whatever the related orders related messages and all will be there, that will be taken care from this microservices, either consumer or producer, which will consume and produce this. So that things also will have a we can create a topic and then define the topic name in this YAML file.
Okay, sounds good. Let's say you have a REST API, right?
Correct.
Which is basically no topic, no queue. You
Mm-hmm.
have a REST API, and that REST API is exposed HTTP protocol.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you're calling another REST API in the backend,
Mm-hmm.
giving some information back from that, whatever you get from the backend is another HTTP calls, right? So your API
Mm-hmm.
is again same thing, expected to have 10 lakh messages, 10 lakh requests per hour. What would you do to make sure it runs healthily? How much memory would you allocate? What's the processing power you would allocate? Uh, what would you make sure that it doesn't crash? The app doesn't crash.
Yeah, so for the REST template, it will be complicated because of synchronous communication. At a time, only one process will be executed. So if you have a more than huge amount of data, better we can go for asynchronous communications, or maybe we have a web client, web flux and all. And if you
Mm-hmm.
want to handle by using REST template, then what need to be do it will take time to consume the data and process. So
How would you said Webflux, right? So how do you configure Webflux, and how would it help?
yeah, webflux will provide this asynchronous communications through this. We have a mono and flux. So if you want to add this webflux features, first you have to add this dependency in your Spring Boot application in pom.xml, and after that you can add those all the annotations based on webflux. So while we need to handle this type of API request, more than a huge amount of request, then we'll have a mono and flex. So that will be based on at a time parallel asynchronous communications will perform, like parallel operations will be performed by this uh, operations, and we can handle through this scenario.
Okay. Sounds good. And let's say you have to interact with a database in here. What dependency would you use, and how would you make sure that you don't flood database with all this extra load, or you don't be a problem. You don't cause database to crash because of this excess request. What can you do?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
should we
So
do?
yeah, if you want the database, first of all, if any database if you want, for that you need to add the dependency in pom.xml, and after that you create a data config file. So that data config file will have a, like, suppose if you have multiple data base connector, then different data config file you have to add, like Mongo connectors, SQL connector, or any other connector. So create a config file, add the property details. So in that property, application.property or application.yaml, there you have to add the all the database property like username, password, drivers, details, and all. And create a all DTO classes. So that DTO classes will have a table properties, detail, columns, and table name. So there you can handle multiple relationship, like either unique data based on the ID, based on the field, or maybe relational mapping and all. And then that will be communicated with the service, and service will be communicated controller to service to repository. So while repository will have a, in that cases we can use any ORM tools. So that ORM tools either JPA or maybe Hibernate and all. So depends on the requirement, we have to add. And there as per the ORM, we have to optimize the query. So while we optimize the query, based on the data will fetched. And if you want data consistency and all, in that cases better we can go for the uh, uh, either maybe package color indexing, and these things.
Sounds good. Let's say you're creating. Did you work with databases?
Yeah.
Okay. Which one? And
Oracle.
it was
Oracle,
okay.
Mongo.
Sounds good. So let's say you're creating on a, you want to expose a resource from Oracle database, right? One of the tables. Could be anything, right? Employee table, or accounts table, user table, whatever, right?
Yeah.
I see you have you worked on providing healthcare, right, for your employees, and you want to show
Correct.
options. So you want to create a service that exposes CRUD operations for all
Correct.
for this particular resource, right? So what would your you can, let's say it's a account table, okay, and you want to expose this resource for CRUD operations. How would the URIs look like? How would
Okay.
you design it? I mean, it's nothing related to coding. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
want to understand how you would write your URIs and methods, right? So for each method, what would it look like?
Yeah. So first of all, what we'll do, like create a Spring Boot application. There we'll have a create a DTO class or DAO classes. There we'll have all the attribute. Like suppose user table is there, so we have to create a user table. There we'll have ID, name, department, salary, and others things. So whatever the attribute you require, that we have to mention. Annotations at the rate tables, at the rate ID, at the rate columns, and these things we have to define. After that, we'll create a controller class, which have a controller class will have a multiple method like get, fetch, delete, and then find. So that get the details from the tables, fetch the detail, like delete the table, update the table, and modify the table. So that type of operations will have a controller that create in the controller class. So that controller class, suppose we have a get details, so that get details will call this service layer. So that service layer will have a service like get employee or get user. So get users will have an interface which will be communicate or call with the service implementation class. Is a service like employee service IMPL file. So that employee service IMPL file will have a get employee detail. There will have a all type of parameters, like what type of things we have to call. Based on that, they will create a request, and that will be communicated with the service, like database layer, that is a repository layer. How that will be complicated, or sorry, how this will be communicated with the auto wiring. So that auto wiring, each classes will have a auto wire. So while we are controlling the controller layer, that will be auto wire with the service layer. While we are doing the business logic in the service layer, that will have a repository layer. So auto wire with repository, and then the request will go to the database layer. Database layer will check like what type of connectors we use, either Oracle and all, so that call details will be connected with a particular database through the repository layer. And then we have a query parameters which will be fetch the details. So select a star from employee or maybe users, where based on the user ID you want of all the informations and all. So it's the same way
Right,
we'll have a
sounds good, right? Like you said, user based on user ID, right? So can you, in the controller class, you would have to design your URI, right? You have to specify that
yes,
URI
yeah.
in your controller class. So I want to understand your these URI specification standards or the naming standards, right?
Mhm.
So what would your URI look like?
Yeah, URI
If you
look
say
like,
get mapping, then what would your, can you type that in the chat, or what IDE do you use?
mostly we used like STS, IntelliJ and all. So
Okay.
the URI naming conventions also will
Do
be
you
there.
have, yeah, do you have one of those IDs in this laptop?
Can I mention in Notepad and chat?
Okay, yeah, Notepad is fine too. Yeah, you can share.
You can share the screen, Amarjit, whenever coding.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
I'm dropping off, Amarjit. I have another call.
Sure, sure, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Rojal. Thanks, Marco. Thanks, Arun.
Are you able to see my screen?
Okay.
Yeah.
So here, like, suppose if you want, then URI like we'll have a like slash. Like that, suppose if we have or like get details based on ID. So suppose the in the controller we have a get detail information. So how we will fetch it based on this ID. So we have a path variable. So that path variables, suppose I have mentioned ID as a 2. So based on the second ID, the all details will come from the employee. So the same way we have a delete employee, update employee, or insert these things.
What about create?
Create
And I'm sure for delete employee, I don't think you want to specify get details, right? So
no,
let's
no,
see
no.
how your looks like, or for everything, for all the methods, and also the HTTP verb method you would use.
Okay, HTTP also you want, yeah.
Method, yeah, just the method, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. What if you want based on ID or query parameter? क्या थोड़ी देर में देखो। Hello. Hello.
Hey, Marjit.
Yeah.
Okay, for joining back. I
Yeah, I
think
think
that's
there was some limitation was there in that, so that connected or disconnected.
yeah. And the other person, I forgot her name. She was waiting for some to check the connectivity issues, and it happened after she dropped out.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. We were talking about the URIs, right? So do you, do you I saw you had IntelliJ. Do you think you can open IntelliJ and create this dummy REST project, right? Um, just create the controller class for the same methods which you just shared in Notepad,
Okay.
and return just a string when it's successful, and appropriate HTTP code like 200, 201, or
Yeah.
204, and then just let's see it run and add a swagger on it so that we can see that, and test it, okay, from your local.
Okay.
Can you go back to sharing your screen?
Okay.
We'll
Yeah.
just use like another 5 or 10 minutes
Sure.
because
Sure.
it's just a dummy project, right? So quickly get it done. And
Okay. So are you able to see my screen now?
yeah, I can see.
Yeah. So what we will do, like the same way, we have to create a get mapping, and then suppose we have a user table, then what I mention user, and based on the user ID, so the path variable we have to mention the user ID, so either user ID 1 or 2 or 3, based on that we have to fetch the detail. So once you have
We were
created
working
git,
with employee details, right? Before we dropped off.
no, users only, users you told.
Yeah, you said employee and then slash get details and then slash ID equal to question mark, right? That was your formation.
Users, maybe after that modified this users ID, users and all.
Okay, sure. Yeah, let's put pen down the other two methods as well,
Mhm. Okay.
and then Yeah, and then use your IntelliJ to
So,
create
so,
this.
so to delete, we'll have a delete method. Delete. So based on that, delete, we can mention the based on the user ID. So like same we have whatever the user ID you want that we have to delete. And then get post put delete and put post put delete put also will have the same way because ID and all based on the ID name or name we can answer. So username name username username, username user ID and user and then user ID. Okay. Now what you want here now after that?
Yeah. Now after that, okay, you want to expose username, right? Okay. So for your last put mapping, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you accepting username?
uh, because we need to update this detail based on the name only.
Yeah. Why not ID? You're exposing a get with ID, user ID, and delete with a user ID. Now, why would you want to update it based on username?
uh, it depends on like if you want I can mention but I thought maybe I will be update some of the information based on username.
Yeah, yeah. So based on username, let's say your ID, right? In your user table,
Mm-hmm.
what is it? What does this ID signify? Maybe it's a user table, right? So does it have any constraints on it?
Yeah, user ID will have a constant unique constant will be there.
Hmm.
Unique
And what about username?
username we don't have unique constant there
Right. So if you don't have unique constraint
then we can
and you want to provide a way to update user based on username, then don't you think you will end up
correct correct.
creating ambiguous relationship that you will not know which username to update. You might end up updating more than one row, right?
Yes, 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 correct, correct.
And so what would you do different to make this change? Okay, so user ID. Okay, and then maybe accept let's say you have just the username, right? So um, let's go with the username.
Mm-hmm.
So while creating and while updating, that's the only field which you're accepting. And also when returning with the get, right, that's the only field you're returning in the get, right? So assuming that's the only field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you write that project with a just a REST controller in your IntelliJ?
Okay, IntelliJ is not working for me right now.
Okay. How about STS?
HTS, yes. This actually this laptop is not have any others tools. Can we make it here only in on Notepad?
Okay. So for REST controller, I just wanted to see it work
CRUD
when you
operations.
add structure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if that is not working, then yeah, that's okay. We can move on to the next topic. Uh, so, Marcio, Marco, I'm good with the technical part. So I gave the job description and the background to Amarjit about our what the expectations would be. So yeah, you guys go ahead with your part. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Arun. Hey, I no, actually I don't have much question. Like, I just want to understand, a little bit of your current position, like, in the type of job you're doing, size of team, if you have experience with a kind of remote team. Looks like, everyone has this type of experience right now, right? Because of the after the pandemic, right? So just want to hear a little bit more about you. How was a day on your working life, right?
Okay. So like working life is mostly we are working from agile work. So agile will have a we have a scrum team and all. So total we have a 12 to 15 members in our team. So based on the scrum calls, we need a sprint and all will be there. So whatever the sprint task has defined, a sprint in that we have a multiple task will be defined based on the Jira. We need to work and daily status call and others retrospectives and all will be there. So that type of things there we need to work, and on daily basis mostly we are involving in developing applications, implementing and testing the applications. While we develop applications, then there will be some deployment also on daily basis, because we have microservices. So on daily basis we need to some modifications and development will happen. So we involve on the deployment also. So while going for the deployment, we have to check across all the changes, configurations, validations, security, implementations and all. So that type of involving a part will be there. Half of the day we have to involve for the deployments and all. Half of the day we have a developments part and calls to arrange the meetings and all. So that type of things we are working on daily basis.
Okay. So like you mentioned like a 10, 12 colleagues on the same team, right?
Yeah, same teams which will have a different domains and technology. Like some of have a DevOps, some of the have testings, some of have Java, Angulars, UI, and database.
And how do you ensure like your code you're delivering has the the desired quality? Is that any discipline and any best practice you follow to ensure that when you have something done, it's really done? Don't have like defects or not completed logic or functionalities.
Okay,
So
so
which quality discipline do you use on your day-to-day job?
day-to-day job mostly we have multiple tools are there, like so SonarQube is there while we are testing the applications, and code quality we need to check. Others will have a Git there we have a reviewers and all, so that reviewers will review the code changes of all the changes. And after that we'll have a Jenkins, so that Jenkins while we are building the application, they will check some predefined like testing cover or not, test cases and all the configurations things and all. So that type of things we have.
Okay, and you mentioned Jenkins, but you have experience on GitLab.
Yeah, GitLab and GitHub both I have.
Okay. All right. So, man, I think I'm don't have much more questions. I was following the the conversation with Harun. I think I'm good as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Do you have any questions, Amarjit, for us?
Yes, I have some questions.
Go ahead.
What was your most successful project?
Most successful project mostly was e-commerce based and banking application when I was deployed. So there we have developed microservice based applications. We migrated with Java to microservices Spring Boot applications, and delivered on time with the multiple module. And we have also different type of issues and bugs was there while we developed the application after the production. So we found that and give the solutions, appropriate solutions with the different issues and all. So now it is in live.
Okay. And the most failure project.
Most failure project right now, no, nothing. I think most of the project is delivered on time. Some of have delays due to the different concern, like maybe technology application not proper, or maybe some client delay, or maybe some budget constraints and all was there. So there's no other project which have, but delays happen somewhere. Depends on the requirement.
Okay. Okay. And what motivates you to fill this position?
Sorry.
What motivates you to fill this position? Why do you want to work here?
Because of the technology which we seen, like most of the technology you used for the latest technology which is on which I have already in a skilled work to experience and all, so that's why.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Okay, that's all from my side, Arun.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask if he had any questions. So,
Like,
Amarjit, let us know if you have any questions.
yeah, so for the technology wise, I understand like what type of domains and all you are hiring right now.
What you said domain? So it's a Spring Boot dev role,
No, either telecom, e-commerce, banking.
right? Like I said, we are CRM, right? We are CRM for Dell Technologies. So
Okay.
product-wise, yeah, we are product-based company,
Mm-hmm.
and e-commerce, our main suit,
Okay, okay.
and the infrastructure is our business.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sure,
Yeah,
sure, sure. Understand. Yeah. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it from my side.
Okay, sounds good. I guess we are good then. Thank you very much, Amarjit. Thank you all. We can
Yeah.
connect back. Thank you.
Sure,
Bye.
sure. Yeah. Thank
Thank
you
you,
all. Thank
folks.
you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.